Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Batter, a podcast about how brands, business owners, and entrepreneurs rise. I'm your host, Jill Miller of Vera Creative, a small marketing firm in the Chicagoland area, where I'm also a part-time instructor of an advertising course at St. Xavier University. Join me as I hang out and talk to people who know all about the ingredients to success and the recipes for disaster. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to The Batter. I am here today with Travis Dewitz of Dewitz Photography. Welcome, Travis.
Hello.
So thanks for being with me today. In full disclosure, let's see, we've known each other for how many years? It's been a while.
You can count in decades.
Oh, decade. Oh, man, are we that old? Well, I've known Travis for a really long time. Thank you again for being our guest today on the show. And let's jump in. Let's talk about what it is that you do. If you had to write a job description about what it is you do, what would it say?
I'm a commercial photographer. I specialize in a lot of agriculture, industrial, a little bit of healthcare. I also do some senior pictures and some other portraits and family pictures are kind of thrown in the mix, but I don't really push that. But yeah, I really push my business towards the commercial side of the photography world.
And what made you decide to focus on those areas?
When you know a subject well, it's easier to photograph it and photograph it in a realistic way. So I think that's kind of what pushed me in that direction. But also, being in Wisconsin, there's a lot of agriculture, and I guess Wisconsin's full of all sorts of industrial businesses and healthcare. But that's probably why I get a lot of agriculture, is because of being here in the dairy state.
So part of it is opportunity, and the other part is there was maybe like a predisposed interest in those things?
Yep, for sure. And then, a lot of it has to do with marketing too, as, you market towards what you want to do. And once you start getting some of those jobs, you can use those jobs to leverage more jobs in the same field.
Excellent point. I love that the non-marketer had to come up with make the first point about marketing. Thanks for doing my job for me. Appreciate that. So let's talk about how you got into commercial photography. What helped you decide to kind of jump down that career path? What was or wasn't happening in your life at that time?
Well, I think photography for me started as a hobby, so that's kind of where it was just something I enjoyed doing, and it turned into a career. But I'm also a automotive technician with a father-son business. Been doing that right out of tech school, and I still do that to this day. And I was doing photography on the side just for myself, as a hobby, like I stated, and I started enjoying it more and more. I started getting into portraits, and at one point I felt confident in my skill level that I decided to go into business as a photographer, and that's kind of where it started. And when I talk to other photographers, I always, photographers kind of go in and we just kind of were a jack of all trades. And, I'm doing family pictures, I'm doing newborns, I'm doing senior pictures, I'm taking pictures of a guy in his car, I'm trying to sell some nature stuff on the side. You're kind of doing everything, and you realize what you enjoy doing and the jobs that you don't want to do. And as I started getting busier and busier, I started narrowing down and getting right into the commercial side of photography, and there's different areas in the commercial field. So I do the photography needed for like businesses when they want to redesign their websites, or they're doing a marketing campaign. That's kind of what I go into, or that's kind of what I gravitated towards. And I also saw an opening in the market for commercial photographers in my area, where so many of the other photographers were only doing senior pictures or only doing families or newborns, weddings. So that's kind of where that's kind of pulled me in that direction. That's where I am at the moment.
Okay, wow. So many questions arise out of that. So first of all, I want to ask my listeners that if they know of any other mechanic/photographer, that they have to give a shout out to that person in the comments of this podcast, because I think that is, good luck with that, exactly. Maybe night and day, but not really, because you're working with your hands, you're problem solving. I can see where there'd be some crossover, but
it's definitely left brain, right brain.
Okay, so no. So no crossover.
There's crossover there, because the stuff that I do for my automotive, the automotive stuff that I do is diagnostic, testing, programming. So it's definitely thinking and problem solving more than anything else, but it's still very hands-on. And of course, photography is both of those, but photography has that creative aspect to it, and it's definitely left brain, right brain.
Okay. So you also mentioned in there that first of all, what % of your time do you work on cars versus photography now? And is that a different percentage than when you first started getting into photography?
So the automotive is pretty much a full-time job, so it's kind of 9 to 5 type hours. When I started the automotive side of it, I probably put more hours in after hours too, in training and learning and doing other business stuff. But then as I did it long enough, you get everything kind of to where you want it, and I started not putting as much time in after hours, and then the photography came to play. And I put probably just as many hours in with that, a little bit mixed up, 7 days a week versus 5 days a week. But I mean, to really be honest, I'm probably doing 40 hours a week in the automotive world, and average, I'm probably doing 30 hours a week in the photography world, give and take. Some weeks are busier, and other weeks are slower. But there's a lot of time. It's not all like with client time, but there's a lot of time with learning and learning new skills, along with lots of time editing.
There's a really great quote that says, "We try to do something new without first making room for it." And I think that's true a lot with entrepreneurs, or they have this business going or that business going, and they don't realize how much time and energy just starting one business can take. And I think entrepreneurs tend to be a little bit more creative and have ideas. And so that creativity and all those ideas can make them want to kind of jump from thing to thing. But in that quote, I think it's just so true. Like, you have to make room, like in your mental space, physically, all those things for a business. And it sounds like you really did that. You had a 9 to 5 job, but you had this passion project, and you maybe were not thinking at the time it would turn into something as big as it has, but you made space for it. You allowed the time and the energy and probably the late nights, I'm imagining,
Yes.
And the many, many hours of editing, because I know photographers do a lot behind the scenes that people don't realize. So at that, what you were saying just kind of brought me to that quote. And another thing you said in there, which I think is really interesting, is that you are already part of a family business. You are already part of somebody else's journey into owning their own business and being an entrepreneur. So did you learn anything from your dad in that regards?
For sure. The quotes, I mean, that's spot on, and like you said, there's never enough time. Like I always feel like I'm being pulled from both directions a lot. But going with your second question, I mean, what I probably learned from him is how to be a workaholic. I guess it's just working and to put the time in, and it doesn't come easy. If you want more, you work longer hours that week or that day. If you have to get something done, you have to get it done, and there's no like just putting things off for the next day just doesn't work, because then you just get that much further behind.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think I can, even just marketing certain people's businesses, a lot of times my clients are putting in full days and they don't even have time to get to my emails or approve, the copy I write for them or the flyer that I created for them, whatever it may be, until late at night. And so sometimes, like tonight, we're starting this podcast 7:30 p.m. at night. I'm just getting started for the day. So that's a great point that you make for anybody out there who wants to own a business, start a business. Write that down. Another thing you said that I thought was really interesting that has to do with the marketing side of things is that you said you saw an opening in the market. So was that research? Was that observation? Because I'm a huge research nerd. So for anybody out there who doesn't know that, I focus a lot of my marketing on research first. I feel like research helps drive strong strategy and make sound business decisions. So I got really excited when I heard you say that you saw an opening in the market, and I thought, oh, did you do research? So what was that like? How, talk to me a little bit about that.
I love research as well, like digging into things and figuring things out, and but I did not research. I was doing no research to find that answer. It just kind of came organically. I started getting more and more calls for the commercial side from businesses that needed photography done, and they were like people they would be calling only did senior pictures or family stuff, and then as I'm doing the other type of photography like family pictures, senior pictures, weddings, there's a million Facebook pages already promoting their work, doing that type of work. There's a lot of websites out there. There's already, ads in the paper or you see around town. It's kind of a field that's really full, especially when photography went digital. Everybody that had a camera that wanted to make money with it, that's kind of what they gravitate towards, is the family portraits, weddings, and seniors. And the other thing that pushed me towards the commercial side is I was more interested in working with other businesses than I was into photographing weddings.
Got it. I love it. And the final thing that came to my mind, something you said, we're going to rename Jack of all trades to Trav of all trades, because you were talking about all the different hats that you wear as a business owner. And I think that's an important point to make, too, to people who haven't experienced what that's like yet, is it's just all the different roles you play as a business owner. You're not just you're not just doing the parts of the business that you love, which I think can sometimes surprise people as well. They're like, oh, geez, I didn't think I'd ever be in this position to have to make this call or do this kind of maybe grunt work. But as the owner, I think a lot of things fall on your plate that initially you never would have dreamed of. Do you agree with that?
For sure. Businesses don't run on their own, and no one knows who you are or what you do without getting that out there, and that takes work. And it's for photography wise, that's probably only 10% of the business. You have to do your marketing, you have to do for me, I do my own website work, so I keep up on that, and I only do that because I'm so picky, and I wouldn't have any money left trying to pay someone else to make all the changes I make all the time. And I enjoy it. I enjoy branding and marketing as well. So I shouldn't say marketing, but I enjoy branding. The other thing is someone's got to take care of getting phones hooked up and having a phone line and keeping up to keeping up on all the emails that are coming in and answering questions, answering your phone. I mean, you're a secretary, office assistant. When your computer goes down, now you're a computer technician for a little while, or you have to do everything to keep your business going forward and keep growing. And especially in the beginning when it's not making any money yet, you can't hire everything out right away. But then other things are worth hiring out because you'll end up making more money having someone else that specializes in it do that for you.
Yeah, very well said.
So you have to know when to ask for help, I guess.
Yeah, you have to know when to delegate too, and when to ask for help. And I think a lot of business owners, a lot of people just assume that they know because they know one aspect of the business. Like say if you just assumed that I know how to make great photos, so obviously I'm going to do great at this business. That's not the case. Or I took one marketing class, I'm going to be great at marketing. A lot of people don't know when to delegate and when to hand over. So yeah, that's like a really good point. And it kind of brings us to my next question. In all of that, what was the most exciting and what was the most fearful part for you about starting your business, your photography business?
So for me, I think one of the most exciting parts is, like I touched on before, is branding. Like I like design and logos, so that was exciting for me to when I was starting off to do all that stuff for myself. And I know not everybody has the skill set to maybe do that for their own business, but it's kind of enjoyable to know that part of the business was not even the business itself. So you'd think the most exciting part would be being able to do photography and getting those jobs, but I think I really enjoyed the beginning process of building the business and creating the look and style of the business. And then the thing that I think everybody fears the most, I mean, it's kind of the go-to is failure. No one wants to fail. You don't want to put all that time and work into something and then have it end up being nothing. And when you come up to roadblocks or come up to hard times or something it's hard to get through, I mean, if you keep pushing forward, make some changes, take a different route, whatever it takes to keep going forward and making something out of nothing.
Would you say that maybe you had less fear than others because you were already in a full-time job that you basically, you couldn't get fired from?
Realistically, it was gravy. Like the risk level that I was in was so low that, it's not fair for me to talk about a feeling like I'm going to fail or not make it because, when it was going slow, I had all the time in the world to keep moving forward since I had another income coming in from another job. So, I definitely, it was much easier for me than it's going to be for someone that's putting all their cards on the table and jumping in feet first.
I have another super great, I'm like full of quotes tonight, but when you were talking about enjoying the beginning process, another quote that came to my mind is the person who loves the process has a much greater chance of success than the person who loves the outcome. And I'm picking up on that in our conversation.
That's a great quote. It's and like you're talking about before with people, thinking that the job that they're doing is like they just like doing photos, so they want to get into photography because they love taking pictures or doing portraits, and not realizing there's so many other aspects to running a business. And that quote, really kind of touches on with that too, because if you don't want to do all that other stuff and you have no joy in it, I don't like doing billing and I don't like doing invoicing and there's a lot of stuff I don't like doing, but the process as a whole I enjoy enough, and working through the problems and making my business successful is enjoyable. And yeah, that's people that don't get joy from that aspect of owning their own business, they really shouldn't get into owning their own business, because it's going to be work. It's going to be worse than the work you were leaving, that 9-to-5 job you had that you hated. You're going to hate this even more, because now you have all the risk in the world. Everything is on your shoulders, and the 10% of the time that you get to do what you want to do is not enough to fulfill you with all the other work that you're going to have to push through every day.
Yeah, again, like really well said. I think not too long ago I wrote an entire blog on that, like what I did that day, and then I sat down late to start my work, but even though it was really late at night and I was just getting started, there was just a fire in me because I love what I do so much. If I had been, forced to like do yard work or, cook or something like that late at night, there would have been no joy whatsoever in it. And I would have been tired doing it. But with marketing and, with my client work, it's totally different. I can, it fulfills me, like you said, and I'm able to find the energy to do it because I love the whole entire process of it. I don't even mind billing. I mean, obviously I like getting paid, so that's nice, but I also love branding. And after, I think I've been in business for like 10 years and I still just love my logo. And so I just get super excited when I get to look at my pretty invoices and my pretty logo, because I don't see my own stuff all the time. Yeah. But yeah, it's hard for me not to be a dork. I'm a huge nerd, clearly. So let's talk about the first aha moment or biggest realization that you had when expectations didn't meet reality. Do you remember that moment?
Well, so I feel like let's start with the first things I realized for the positive, which was when you realize that getting good SEO, search engine optimization, with like for your website, and figuring out how to write the text, keyword, adding titles to your photos, and when finally after months you start coming up on that first page of Google searches, and you start getting these phone calls for jobs, and then for me, I'm always asking, how'd you hear about me? Because that's a big part of knowing where to put spend my time. And like, I searched you on Google, and you're the first thing that came up, or you came up on Google, and I liked your images. And that was a big aha moment, like, spending time getting my name out there on the internet. I mean, you can spend all the time in the world on Facebook trying to promote that way, but Facebook stuff doesn't translate over very well into Google from my experience. You need to use all your social media platforms for other clients and other connections, but for me, learning SEO and the power of Google was a big aha moment for me.
I can't tell you. Oh, I was just going to say, I can't tell you how many business owners aren't asking that question. And everybody, hear me loud and clear. That is a critical question. How did you hear about me? If you aren't asking your customers that, please start asking them that. It should be one of the first things when you are talking with a customer, and you need to be tracking it, because that's what I tell all my clients. That tells us where to spend our money, where to spend our time. Excellent point. Thank you again.
No, it is. And plus, it's a good starting off point when you talk to your clients. It shows that you care about how they found you. And then when they tell you how they found you, and then if you go a little bit deeper, like, well, what were you searching for? That can lead into you finding a way to answer and solve their problems, because they're kind of telling you what they were looking for just by that start of a conversation. And
that's your research right there.
Yeah. And that tells you where to put your time. That tells you where to focus your time and money.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, word of mouth, like, marketing you have to market, you have to be on Google, you have to be everywhere, but word of mouth and making connections with people, that's always going to be one of the best places to put your time. You have to be a personal, you don't have to be, but it's good to be a personable person and to be putting out quality that people want to talk about and share.
Yeah, agreed. Was that an aha moment for you? Did you think you would have to be personable and putting yourself out there?
I added to my aha moment question. But, I think we all kind of know that's a big part of any business, and we all kind of know that word of mouth is always so much. It's always so powerful. So that I probably always knew it, but maybe it just became a bigger deal to me once it was working for me.
Got it.
And then I gotta go back to the question here. One thing where
you were working on the positive.
Yeah, the one thing where expectations didn't meet reality is fast growth. Like when you're doing this, like you put a new blog post up, or you do an ad, or you get your website going, or maybe it's a Facebook page, or you posted 10 new pictures on Instagram, and you expect like all these phone calls and emails to start flooding in over the next couple days or week, and sometimes it's crickets, and you're like, oh, maybe I did something wrong, and you do some more stuff, and you still get crickets. That's definitely something you're always expecting to get more than you do sometimes. Eventually it comes, and eventually as you do things, you start getting those phone calls and those emails, but you don't always get that, no matter how much work you put in. But it's like you can't just do something one time and expect a big payoff. It's definitely working over time. It's a long game type of most businesses. They're a long game. Like you just keep at it. You keep marketing, keep showing your work, keep putting the hours in, and it slowly comes back to you.
So is that how you would say, like, you kind of dealt with the realization that, because I think I made that point in my last podcast too, that a lot of people expect that their business is going to be booming just because they open the doors, and that's overnight. Not the reality. Yeah, that's not the reality of it. So, how did you work around it? How did you deal with it?
That's where having the two jobs gave me that safety net to kind of wait the game out, and still had income coming in, so I didn't have to panic quite as much. But you're still like, what am I doing wrong? And then you find better ways to do things, and it did help. Those little hurdles does help to keep pushing me forward and finding new ways around to get those phone calls. But like if you're a brand new business, you can't expect any marketing to skyrocket you over, in a day or two. Like people need to see your work, see your name, see your logo over and over and over before they start trusting you and realizing that you can help them or you've got something to sell them.
For sure. I think that, to add to the answer of that question, how you deal with it when times are slow is with consistency. You stay consistent. You stay at it. And boy, do those slow times and those hard times really kind of test your will. And I think a lot of people, that's where they fall off the map, is they lose the energy and the drive to stay consistent with something. And then, that's when maybe they're not quite as successful as they could have been, because it is hard to stay motivated, keep working at it. Yeah.
Another time to stay consistent, though, too, which can be really hard, is when you're busy. Like, when you're really busy, that's a time that I quit posting as much, or I quit doing any ads, or I slow down on updating my website, because I'm just too busy doing the actual work. But you have to work hard to stay consistent during those busy times if you want to keep those busy times going. Because if you become slow, it's too late. Like now you have to do all that marketing and all the push again. Well, that takes days, weeks, months for that to start working for you again, and you're behind the 8 ball again, and you're going to have these highs and lows. And if you want a consistent business, you have to stay consistent with everything that makes you busy, that brings the customers in.
That's so well said. I had like a client that I'm kind of wrapping up with now, and they do that. They go through periods of, well, we're selling, oh, we're not selling, but these periods are like 3 weeks apart, and it just kind of boggles my mind, and I can tell you it's not working for them, but, I can only say so much, but to your point, that's exactly what they do. They're like, well, we're not selling, so we don't need to do any marketing right now. Well, thanks for making my job 10 times harder, because in 2 weeks when you decide you want to start marketing again, your audience has moved on already. You're old news. You're forgotten about. So, yeah, that's a really good point, that even when things are good, things are up, you really want to keep it going because it doesn't last forever. Nothing, as we know, does. So, yeah, that's a great point. What about some of the failures you've overcome? Is there anything you can kind of touch on there?
I mean, because I had the safety net of the other job, I didn't have like major failures. At least nothing that comes to mind that was a big failure. Because like for me, I guess everything was like just small roadblocks that I had to find a way through or around, and so I don't really, nothing comes to mind as a major failure that I had to overcome. Learning to specialize, though, I guess it's not a failure, but being too general or being a jack of all trades with photography.
No, it's a trav of all trades. Remember, we recoined the phrase.
It's a trav of all trades, because someone comes to your website, and so I wouldn't say this is a failure, but you have a website and you have, like, for a photographer, you have weddings, a picture of a fox, a picture of a flower, some senior pictures, picture of a car. Customers come to your website and it's confusing, and since you look like you do kind of everything well, they're kind of looking for someone that can do what they want, and they specialize in it, and that's all they do, and they know it inside and out. So, like I said, it wasn't a failure, but it was definitely a learning point or a roadblock, realizing that I needed to specialize what I did, and also specialize my website. So since I still do senior pictures, and I still do and I do commercial photography, but I put them on separate websites, so that, and then the hobby side of my photography, my passion projects, and the stuff I do for my own artistic release, that goes on another website. So that when someone Googles my name and Googles not Googles my name, but they're Googling that they want commercial photography, they get to the right place, and I can sell that job, and the client's not confused with what I do.
For sure. So the lesson that you learned was to specialize. And again, you keep taking the words out of my mouth, because if you don't specialize and you've got, 10 different things going on and you're trying to communicate all these different messages, you're right. It's absolutely confusing to the end user. And I've told, people have actually said to me that their target market is everyone. And I die a little inside when I hear that, because it's just, well, that might be great. Everyone might use your product, but not everyone is going to buy from you specifically. Not everyone is looking for you at this moment in time, which is another reason why it's good to be consistent, because when they do decide to look for what it is you can provide them, are you there? Are you marketing? Are you making noise? Right?
Exactly.
But yeah, so it's like you can't be all things to all people, and that's I think it's a great lesson. Yeah.
I mean, like, imagine if Pepsi was selling beds and mattresses. Like, That would be weird, you know. And
yeah, that
and
would
then
be
you're
so
talking
weird.
about like marketing to everybody. Well, even like between Pepsi and Coke, that Coke markets to their people, and when they do campaigns, they'll do a campaign directed at, you know, the youth, or they'll do a campaign directed at like a very niche target of people that they're going after. And you wouldn't think that, but it is. It's definitely true what you said.
Yeah, and as you know, I teach an advertising course, and one of the things I always tell my students too is like, welcome to this course. You're never going to look at an ad the same, because as a marketer, as somebody with, you know, advertising knowledge, I'm always looking at the ad as in terms of who are they targeting, who's their target, can I pinpoint who that is? So that's kind of a spoiler for me, but.
That's a good point. As a photographer, I see the world differently. Like, you're looking at like how the light looks, and like, well, that's a perfect picture. Like, I'm just always seeing pictures, and it's funny hearing that for you. It's every ad is you're just looking at who they're going after, and
their demographics and their psychographics. Yeah. You have a much better view of the world. Yours sounds way more beautiful. I'd rather see the world in pictures versus target market.
Yeah, but I live in failure every day, because it's like I can't take a picture of that because I'm driving, or I don't have my camera with, or I can't stop on the interstate. So it's like I'm always in a bad spot. Like, God, I wish I could get a picture of this. I wish I could get a picture of that.
Would you say that's one of the lows in regards to the work you do? Because it doesn't really sounds like you have a lot of highs, but not very many lows.
Yeah, I mean, you can count that as a low. I mean, it's more of a high than it is a low. Like you said, it's still, at least I'm seeing something beautiful that I can take a mental snapshot of if I want to, I guess. But
but not having your camera 24/7 in your hand, that's the low.
It can be, but sometimes I'll leave it at home on purpose, because if I have it, then I feel obligated to try to take a picture of it, and that can be a task to deal with at times too. So sometimes you just got to shut off. Like, you know, it's hard, but I just have to shut the photography side off, which is easier. As years go by, it's easier and easier to not always be trying to produce something.
Yeah, wow, you're so right about that, because I was just thinking about how I don't think I've ever once gone on vacation without my computer. I set my out of office, and then I have clients literally saying, why are you setting your out of office? You answer every email, you answer every phone call, and it's like,
but it's delayed by minutes.
Right. Thank you. By minutes, you're so right about that too, because it's like it sets the expectation that I'm not going to respond within 30 seconds. It's going to be 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Funny. Yeah. So I know we kind of talked before the show that you didn't really think you had too many ridiculous stories to share. Has anything come up since we first chatted about that?
Nothing comes to mind that's too crazy.
You don't want to out anybody either.
Things. Yeah, I can't out anything out anybody. But even in that, like nothing that great comes to mind. Like every job and every shoot is here. I've got one. I got one. It's top of my head. So this is a personal project. It was part of my ballerina series, and you know, you're always trying to find creative ways to create imagery and to take a subject like a dancer or ballerina and take them off the dance floor and out of a room or off the stage and make something interesting. And so I was working with this girl, and I had her. Our plan was she was going to float on her back in the lake, and then I was going to like get up on the dock and kind of shoot downwards, and she was just going to have that floating vibe. And then another picture was she'd be out in the lake, and it was just, you know, being in the water was just something different. The photography, it's all in a world where everybody's surrounded by images at all times, photography, it's all about getting someone to stop scrolling for half a second. That's just get that little bit of attention. Maybe they'll even like the picture. So you're always going for those captivating photos. And, we're out there for half hour. So this is like October. And the last shot that I was going to set up, I had to actually take my boots off and walk out into the lake. And within like 30 seconds or so, my feet went numb. And I realized at that moment that the lake was freezing cold. Like, it was ready to ice over. It was freezing cold. And she never showed any signs that she was cold or that it was that bad. And I didn't even realize. And she's like out there for 30, 40 minutes in this water, and my feet went numb in like 30 seconds. So that's one of those crazy stories, I guess.
That is nuts. Did you say anything to her? Like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, you're tough as nails.
I'm like, you're a top model, and you didn't wince or anything over this. Like, talk about being strong and not a complainer. Like, she had a job to do, and she did it, and didn't say nothing about it.
Anything for the photo, right?
And her dad brought her some hot coffee and a towel or a blanket, so it all worked out, and she didn't die. So,
Well, I'm glad you thought of that story, because that is crazy, and way props to that model. So in terms of myths, what do you think is the biggest myth about being an entrepreneur? I think we touched on a lot of this in a lot of different ways, but anything else you want to add?
People think if you're in business for yourself, it's, man, all the freedom you're going to have. Like, you don't have to do what the boss says. You can do whatever you want, get done when you want, and you don't. You have no freedoms. You're tied to that business 24/7. 365. There's freedoms in some places and things that you can do when you work, how you do your job. But in the end, I can't just go home and shut it off either. There's way less freedoms than people that haven't done it sometimes think it's going to have. And that, obviously, there's a lot of stress that comes with it, and people sometimes think that, a common thing is their 9-to-5 job is, maybe they are automotive technicians, so they're good at their job. So like, I might just open my own shop and take all the profit for myself. And then they don't realize there's a lot more stress than they would have ever expected, and the hours you have to put in are longer than you expect, and the money isn't as plentiful as it felt like it was for the boss that you're working for. You just felt like money was just pouring in, and they were just packing it away in boxes. But that's not reality. So that's definitely one of the biggest myths of being a business owner.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the process versus the outcome, because if you're starting your own business for that, taking all the profit for yourself, that's the outcome, and versus loving the process. Yeah.
And how much of the money that does come in, it just all funnels back into the business most of the time.
Yeah, 100% for sure. Wow, cool. So this has been so great. So I'm going to ask you my final question here, which I ask, you're my only second guest, but I plan on asking everybody this because I think it's a great question. But if you had to write a recipe for success, what would be some of the ingredients?
Well, since it's a recipe, I've got ingredients. Like most products are, like, is this sugar-free, a fat-free type of food or that you're cooking? And so I'm making a sleep-free version of owning and running your own business. But, you need some patience, lots of work ethic, a vision, determination, and plenty of time. You mix that all together, and you'll come up with something good.
Awesome. I love that. Trev, tell everybody where they can find you online Where can they like your
Instagram
pages?
is the big place to be now. Seems like Facebook, people are kind of moving away from that a little bit. So Instagram at Travis Dewitz. That's TravisDewitz. If you want commercial photography, TravisDewitzCommercial.com is the website to go to. And if you want to see my creative works or my personal projects, you can go to TravisDewitz.com.
And I highly recommend that everybody go and do that. You've done some fantastic, phenomenal work, and you've won awards, right? Like, you're an award-winning photographer. We can say that about you. And you've been featured. Without lying. And you've been featured in magazines and publications, correct?
Yes. Yep. I've had plenty of covers and featured articles. Yep. It's part of the commercial photography, but even my personal stuff has made it many places.
That's so awesome. Congratulations. Well, again, thank you so much for your time today. Everybody, Travis Dewitz, commercial photography. What great insight that you shared. I appreciate it so much. Everybody tune in next time for our special guest. I won't reveal who it is just yet. But again, thanks, Travis, and thanks, everyone, for listening.